Death and Life of a Soldier 1. Part 1. The Soldier's Story. Chapter 1. The valley on the fringe of heaven's realm lay dreaming in fragrant peace. The pearly sky held no hurrying clouds, but remained lightly veiled in mist, as though time and season stood still. Down the grassy hillside, flowers rose motionless on their slender stems, for not a breath of air was stirring. Their petals were half opened, like the eyes of a child in the early morning, and their fragrance mingled with the air in sweetness. In the depths of the valley, a stream flowed gently on its way, its silver ribbon cut with stooping foliage and the sharply edged rim of a bridge. On the other side of the valley, the hills climbed and climbed as though in friendly rivalry. How high was the topmost peak it was not possible to see, but in the distance the veiling mist seemed to close in with a secret smile. Almost it seemed as though no sound had ever broken this deep stillness. Not any movement stirred to life the long, gleaming blades of grass. Then, startling in its unexpectedness, the bowed figure of a man appeared. He came toiling up the hillside from the depths of the valley, stumbling a little as though he carried a great pack upon his back, but his hands and his back were empty of any burden. Now and then he paused and glanced round in perplexity, shading his eyes and gazing steadily in every direction. When he reached the plain, he stood quite still, smiling a little, then yawning. He stretched himself among the flowers and fell asleep. The valley dreamed on. The man on the ground became part of the peace of it all. Time flowed without measure. Was it a mist that began to surround the sleeping man? At first it appeared so, then the misty outlines became more clearly defined, and two angels stood looking down at him. They were smiling gently, as parents smile sometimes beside little beds at eventide. Presently the man stirred slightly. The two angels sat down beside him, watchful, yet seeming to gaze out over the hills. "It is the silence that puzzles me so much," the man said clearly. The angels became more alert, and a glance passed between them. They looked down at the strong young face. The eyes were still closed, and the sandy lashes lay on the bronze cheek. Young as it was, the face was lined and hollow, telling of days of suffering, sleeplessness, hunger. "It is the silence," the man began again, and opened his eyes. For a moment he could not seem to focus them. He blinked and looked about him vaguely. "It is the silence of heaven," said one of the angels. The man looked startled, his eyes focusing suddenly upon them. "Heaven?" He started up on his elbow, but one of the angels gently pressed him back. "Rest for a while. You have been so weary." "I know all that," the man said testily, "but heaven? I don't want to be in heaven. Me? Heaven?" He laughed shortly. "Never thought much about it, I suppose." "No, perhaps not," said the taller angel, who appeared to be a man. "All the same, you are here now." "But I thought people had to be good to get into heaven. I have never been particularly good, nor specially bad either, come to that. But heaven? Does it surprise you so much? Love covereth a multitude of sins." "Love?" Again the man laughed. "Can't say I have loved much either. Of course, there was my mother and the kids at home. Don't know that I ever thought of loving them, though. Just took them for granted, I guess." "No, I did not refer to that love," explained the angel. "Greater love than this no man hath, that a man lay down his life for his friends." That's from the Bible, isn't it? "Yes." For a time there was silence between the three. Then the man said musingly, "We just all stood together, and it did not seem to matter who lived and who died, so long as somebody held on. So much was at stake, you see, but those men, how could they take it? You ought to have seen my mates." "I did see them," the man angel declared quietly. "You did?" "Yes. Do you think I should have forsaken you in the midst of battle? I, who have guarded you all your life?" "You have?" The man looked amazed. Then he smiled. "I say, it doesn't seem as though heaven was such a strange place after all, to find a friend here." "Splendid," smiled the angel, and the woman guide agreed. Try to realize that we are here to help you, she counselled. You have had a terrible and a glorious experience. You have lived your life on earth in a few years, instead of it being spun out as most lives are. You have not had the opportunity to prepare slowly for heaven, as the majority have. All these unusual circumstances mean additional problems. Let us help you with them. You are kind. The man sat up now, looking much more at ease. My name is Reg. Of course, it's really Reginald, but no one calls me that. Well, we will call you Reg. Thanks. He pulled at the grass perplexedly. There are so many problems, I don't know how to begin. First, about my mates. How can I stay here and leave them to fight alone? It doesn't seem fair. And what about my sins, even though they are covered? Don't I have to give an account of them or anything? What does one do here? We can't just go on sitting on the grass, surely. And I hate to say it, this sounds like the sort of irreverent, but where is God? Death and Life of a Soldier, Chapter 2. Problems. He is everywhere, explained the angel, answering the last question first. Here he is called the Father because he is the loving Father of us all. We cannot see him on the lower planes, not because he is not here, but because we are not advanced enough to have clear vision. As we climb higher and higher towards the heights, we receive, as it were, degrees. Thus gradually we become accustomed to the glory of the reflection of his light. He broke off, for he saw that Reg could not follow him. He seemed so far away, mysterious, the man said apologetically. Of course I went to Sunday school once and we learned about him there. Since then, well, if I have thought at all, it seemed as though there were plenty of time. So many think that, the woman angel said regretfully, if they would but live to prepare. After all, this is eternity. The life on earth they think so important is but a few years. Fewer than I ever guessed it would be. Reg sighed, falling into a gloomy silence. The two angels exchanged a pitiful glance. The man-angel murmured tenderly, Do we not know it is because of your sacrifice that we are so eager to save you pain? The brave giving of your life has won you this indulgence. But my sins, he cried again. I know I am sinful, unfit for such a place as heaven. What about that text? Idle words, you know. I heard a man preach about it once in the park. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall render an account for it in the day of judgment. Yes, that is the one. Well, what about that? It means that in heaven's realm all is known, every word, thought and hidden deed of the past. All must be brought to light, weighed and considered. Well then, Reg looked triumphant but uneasy. The angel met his eyes with a calm, searching glance. My son, are you willing to look deeply and thoroughly at all of your mistakes? What about the friends you wish to see? You cannot do both, you know. Oh, I must know about my mates. He looked up at his two guides appealingly. Please help me. It all seems so strange, and God the Father seems so far away. I know I ought to want to see him, but I feel too worthless for that. Then my mates keep coming back in my mind to them and wanting to know how they are. You do understand, don't you? At the sight of the angel's smiles, his uneasiness vanished. Of course we do. You see, here as on earth, concentration is the only means of success. Now, if you are worrying about your mates, how can you give your mind to the account you must render? No one is forced here, added the woman guide. Just as all nature moves slowly and the seasons come and go almost imperceptibly, so men gradually adjust themselves and fill each need before passing to the next. It is made as easy as that, Reg marvelled. Somehow I did not hope for that. Our king is love. That explains all. There was a silence for a whole companionable, happy pause. Then the man-angel said briskly, What about your remaining question? What does one do here? We have yet to answer that. Yes. First you want to meet your friends. There are the men who died before you. Oh, I never gave them a thought. Why, I shall be with the fellows again. I say, he broke off confusedly, I hope you're not offended. No, we understand. When can I see them? Are they here? They are in many places, the man guide explained. Some were ready and quickly passed through the lower plains. I bet Gordon was among them. Reg burst out irrepressibly. We used to call him Goody Gordon. I should like to see him. He was a wonder when the fellows are dying. Was he, Reg? Yes, it was grand to see him kneeling beside some poor fellow in a trench. He'd put his hand under the boy's head, wiping the sweat out of the closing eyes. You are sorry for all the things you've done amiss, aren't you, laddie? He'd say in a voice as gentle as a woman's. 'Cause it is best to go over the border as clean as you can. He'd signal one of the boys to hare off for the padre as quick as he could. Then stooping over the boy, he'd begin. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Yes, I should like to meet him. No wonder. Are there others? Oh yes, there was Robbie. He sounds like a Scot, but he came from Lambeth. And Johnny and Garth, they all died fighting beside me. You will see them in the Hall of Friends. The Hall of Friends? That sounds good. Do they live there? No. It's a place where people come to meet each other. We will send them a message to see if they can meet you there. And the others? Asked Goody Gordon. Reg gave a boyish laugh. Oh, this is good. If I had known heaven was such a happy place, I should have thought about it and tried to prepare. Well, are you ready for the Hall of Friends? At once, Reg was on his feet and they began to pass swiftly over the valley. Chapter 3. The Hall of Friends. What an exhilarating experience it was. They neither walked nor ran, but seemed to speed rapidly through the air, close to the high ground. But far above the valley, each of the angels had a hand upon his shoulder, and Reg felt as natural as though he had always travelled like this. He looked about him with interest, noting the wide, sweeping expanse of downland, the thick woods and winding streams, the fields bright with flowers and the tall mountains. Once he had caught a glimpse of the sea, and his heart leapt. Neither of the angels spoke, so he remained silent too, enjoying quietly the novel journey. We are here, said the man guide at last. They came gently to rest at the entrance to a large park. Reg paused to look appreciatively about him. The wide lawns were interspersed with golden-hued paths, and everywhere were great banks of vivid colours. Seats were set in scores beside the paths, each a little apart and sheltered. And many of them small groups of people were sitting, talking animatedly. Along the paths others were walking, and Reg watched their easy light steps and heard many joyous laughs ring out from among them. He turned to speak to his angel guides, but they were no longer beside him. He was just about to feel lonely and confused when he caught sight of a familiar face. It was Goody Gordon's. He ran forward eagerly. Gordon was sitting at ease upon one of the nearby seats. He seemed to be clothed in loose garments of plum colour, and his arms, draped in their loose long sleeves, stretched along the back of the seat. As Reg approached, he did not move, but sat smiling upon him with a slightly quizzical air. Reg stopped before him, gulping in eager embarrassment. I say, Gordon, it is good to see you, he jerked out at last. But you look so much at home, almost as though you've been here for ages. Perhaps I have, Gordon agreed calmly. As the angels say, time has no measure here. He patted the seat. Sit down, my dear fellow. Reg flung himself down and sat gazing at his companion in wonder. What is that outfit you're wearing? It looks kind of cool and easy after a stuffy uniform. What about yourself? Reg looked down at himself and his cheeks burned. Guess I didn't even notice. It's that comfortable. It is white though. Yours is reddish. Why is that? Degree, explained his friend briefly. I seem to have heard something about degrees. Doesn't it mean you're closer to the Father? Yes, just a little closer. How wonderful it is. You've always cared about that sort of thing. That sort of thing? Gordon exclaimed warmly. How can you speak like that? What else is there to care about, really? This is God's home and He is love. Our whole life is to overcome our weakness, to make amends, and to learn to grow and climb. But what about me? Reg queried. I asked about my sins, but the angel I fellows just said I must meet my friends first. That is because you want to. I know, but does one just do what one wants to do here? If so, why should anybody think about their sins ever? How can they learn? My dear fellow, you are learning all the time. Am I? Of course. Have you not learned already that heaven is real, that the Father is everywhere, that he loves us and is gentle with us, that angels guard us while we are on earth and guide us in heaven? Why, I have. Then I am not wasting time and putting off the evil moment by seeing my friends first. The evil moment is here now and remains all the while you learn, Gordon explained, adding with a twinkle, Is it so very evil? No, it's jolly good, but how can it be? Because God is love. Do learn this well. It is when we oppose his love that we bring evil upon ourselves, for by turning away from love and goodness, we turn towards evil. Think I'm beginning to understand. Then all I have to do is just to see my friends and enjoy myself, and then I shall be learning all the time. Partly, but there is more in it than that. You have to be humble, for one thing, not cluttered up with your own ideas. If you are willing to learn and humble enough to acknowledge your faults when you see them, you will be able to see more. Light is given us as we grow. The more we grow, the more clearly we can see the holy ones. Remember, pure in heart shall see him. Have you seen him? Reg whispered. Yes. The words seemed to linger in the air and say more than many words could tell. Reg asked slowly, Was it awful, being so full of faults, I mean? He is our beloved, Gordon said gently. There was a little silence after that. Reg watched the passing figures abstractedly, letting all he had learned sink into his consciousness. He began to feel stronger and more at peace than he had ever felt before. A sense of delightful rest stole over him, as though there were nothing to battle with any more, as though all the tumult, conflict and hatred of the world were far away. Gordon startled him by suddenly answering his thought. You have come home, my friend. Chapter 4. Great Times. Gordon rose from the seat and stood looking out over the park. Want to meet some of the other fellas now? Reg sprang to his feet. May I really? Somehow I think this will all seem proved when I have spoken to the others. Just now it's half a dream. A dream that's going to last a long, long time, Gordon agreed. You are only on the fringe of it, but how happy you are going to be when you know. They began to walk quickly along the path, and Reg silently absorbed his friend's thought, being still unconscious of this heavenly power. He realised that Gordon spoke of knowing things that were beyond his perception at the time, but as he grew, he would come to know more and more wonders and sink deeper and deeper into divine truths. One day, the Father will not seem far away, Gordon summed it up all quietly, and you would not exchange your heavenly home for all the earthly pleasures that are there. Reg gave him a quick smile. I believe you are right. Already I feel different somehow. You look it too. How? Why, you don't look weary anymore, or half-starved. You look young and fit and happy. Hello, he broke off. Here's Garth, and there's Johnny and George. The three lads came running up, flushed and laughing. Gordon, cried one of them. Where have you been all this time? The tall, dark man reached out a hand and clasped Gordon's shoulder in a friendly grip hand, and then stared. Not purple-gowned already, old man? Yes, there was a little pause while the others preserved the deferential silence. They seemed to have withdrawn in a little awe of him. So Gordon said quickly, Well, it's good to be together again. Here, pay our respects to Reg. He's only just arrived. Welcome, boy. I say, we'll have great times. Hope it wasn't too bad after we went. Reg greeted two of the men warmly, but drew back in confusion from the other. What is the matter? Gordon asked. Come, this won't do. George never did like me, Reg muttered. At this, the young man laughed. Why, I thought you didn't like me. You did? The two men looked at one another, then began to smile. Guess I thought you were the best shot in our unit, George said quietly. And I have never seen anyone run like you did when you picked up that wounded chap under fire. They both began to laugh then and stepped forward to exchange a friendly clasp. What fools we've been, said George. Often and often I wanted to talk to you, but you looked so cold and unfriendly. And I thought you were too proud even to notice my existence half the time. Laughing, the little group walked on, until Gordon asked, "Where's Robbie?" "I last saw him on the way to the Hall of Adventure," said Garth. "There was a chap he had to meet there. I came here to offer my services to a woman I had treated rather shabbily at home. I'm glad that stain has gone away." "What are you talking about?" Reg queried. The other men exchanged a glance. "Isn't he on the term of reparation?" Johnny asked. "Not started yet," explained Gordon. "What is all this mystery?" Reg broke in, and the others laughed. "You'll know soon enough. Just make the most of this little party now, for we may have to break up very soon." "What, won't I see you any more?" "Oh yes, just send out a thought to any one of us, and if we're not so busy we cannot possibly get away, we will come to you at once." "A thought? Can you get thoughts here?" Johnny fell in step beside him, saying eagerly, "It is simply great. Any information you want comes to you by just thinking about it. It's called reaching out. If you are ready for it, you can receive it easily, but, of course, if it is beyond your understanding, it doesn't seem to be there. When you want to be alone in your thoughts, you just close up like an oyster, you know? It's called drawing the mental veil." Reg was much impressed. "Then no one is cut off from anyone else ever, even if they are apart?" "No, everyone is in touch if they want to be." "Well, that is good news. One of the things I've dreaded is loneliness." "Loneliness," Johnny laughed. "There is no such thing here, only perhaps in the Hall of Adventure." "What is that? Sounds interesting." Johnny turned to Garth. "You must answer that one. You're the only one who has been there as yet." Garth strode along in the centre of the group. "It is the place where people go who have always had the spirit of adventure on earth. There is every imaginable sport for them there, and when they grow tired of that, there are mountains which they can climb alone if they wish, and rivers to cross, huge deserts too. It's the only place where the weather changes. You may get terrific storms, gales or floods, intense heat or cold." "What a queer taste," George commented, adding thoughtfully, "yet people do journey thousands of miles just to battle with those very conditions." "But what is the use of it?" Reg interrupted. "What is gained? You still have your earth standards, young man," Gordon put in, giving his shoulder an affectionate squeeze. "You see, we do not live to gain any praise or prize. We live to grow, learn and climb. If a man has a strong desire still unfulfilled, he is not entirely free to learn, because we are fastened to our wishes. So heaven is the fulfillment of our wishes, and this sets us free for greater learning." "I see," Reg said slowly. "That is very wise." "Well, there is another lesson learned, that heaven is ruled by wisdom," Gordon explained, adding, "Now you would like to meet the rest of our mates, the ones we left behind?" Chapter 5. A Journey Through the Void. "Can I really? I suppose you have all seen them already." "I have," replied Gordon. "The others have been too busy as yet." He turned to them. "Well, fellows, are you ready?" There was a chorus of assent. Reg felt a hand on each shoulder, and in a moment he seemed to be speeding over the ground, sometimes drifting in a kind of cloudy haze, at others barely skimming the purple sides of the mountains for drifting far above the sea. For a while they all talked casually, pointing out to Reg places they had already visited, and then they gradually fell into silence. Reg followed their lead and was silent too. A deep, dreamy peace began to steal over him, and remembering his former weariness, he drifted into a kind of sleep. On and on and on they travelled, the easy movement lulling him into a deeper slumber, until at last a slightly colder atmosphere awakened him. Opening his eyes, he was surprised to see little wisps of white cloud about him, and watching, he saw them left behind, fading into mere puffs in the far distance. He looked down lazily and then became instantly alert. The ground beneath him had vanished. Only a strange blue light broke the monotony of this great void. For a moment he felt startled, poised in that timeless space, like a man who has jumped from an aeroplane and counts before pulling his parachute cord. Only I have no parachute, he thought. All is well, said a calm voice behind him. He turned to his friends and found only his angel guides. When did you come? He began, and where? We are with you all the time, said one of them reassuringly. Sometimes we will that you do not see us. Later you shall see your friends again. Are they going without me? Oh no, they will meet you at your destination. We are here to prepare you for your first visit to the plain between. The plain between? The plain between, how strange, unearthly that sounds. It is neither earth or heaven, but is a plain poised between the two. There, souls who have left their bodies in sleep and in death may meet. In sleep and in death, Reg said musingly. I don't understand that very well. Of course you do not understand, exclaimed the woman guide. It is all new to you. You see, sleep is a little death. Sleep results from the soul of a man going forth from his body. Thus the body is enabled to relax and rest. Sometimes it remains very near, but there are times when the soul goes forth from the earth in its characteristic search for its creator. Why do you say characteristic? Because every man hungers for his God. But that is nonsense, began Reg, breaking off confusedly to mutter, I'm sorry, ought not to have said that. Well, you are assuming a greater knowledge and wisdom than you possess, smiled the man guide, adding, every man hungers for his God. But I cannot understand it, Reg urged. Why are people so indifferent? Why don't they show the hunger? Why is there so much evil in the world? Because the lower nature of man constantly wars with the higher. When man begins to respond to his inherent hunger, he finds that every effort to rise means a sacrifice of the desires and instincts of his lower self. For instance, before a man can even reach out to his Creator in prayer, he must say in effect, I am thy creature, thou art my Creator. This implies humility, a prostrating of the whole soul before a high, unknown, mighty power. That is when man's lower nature steps in. What? Says pride. Are you going to admit that you are a child and not the king you always supposed? Are you going to believe that there is a higher power that can give you birth and death? No, cries man, clutching at his tempting pride. I alone shall rule. And so, finished the angel sadly, the war continues and evil results. Reg mused, impressed despite himself. It is this lower nature, said the man guide, that is often referred to as self. Remember, deny thyself and take up thy cross and follow me. I always thought it was kind of hard and unpleasant. It leads to the greatest joy that man could imagine. By denying the desires and instincts of his lower self, man rises to the dominion of his higher self, there to enjoy the dignity of a son of God. Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have it entered into the heart of man, what things God hath prepared for them that love him. Reggie's face had grown grave as the angel spoke so solemnly, and now he turned to them with new purpose in his eyes. I believe I am beginning to understand, to sense the inside story of this religious business. Oh, forgive me for speaking so cruelly, but it's all so new to me. How strange, though, that I never guessed. Religion seemed a giving up of freedom, not a getting of freedom. Yes, assented the man guide, but remember, the spirit within you hungered, all unknown to your lower nature. For what man knoweth the things of a man, but the spirit of man that is in him? So the things also that are of God no man knoweth, but the Spirit of God. If only I had studied these teachings, Reg said regretfully. Somehow it seemed just for kids and dreamers. True dreamers are true climbers, Reg, for a dream is in reality a reaching forth of the desire, a planning of the way. Chapter 6. Peas and caraway seeds. Tell me more about going to this plain between in sleep, Reg asked. Well, man prepares for his death in this way. If it were not for sleep, death would have the terror of the unknown. But it has, Reg interrupted, at least to a great many people. No, both the angels were emphatic. The man guide continued. Death only has terrors for some when it is viewed from afar. Even when it draws near, some still retain it, but in death no one is afraid. At the moment of death, every soul enters into clear vision of heaven's realm, and so death is just seen as a door to pass through. It is as simple as that. You speak of heaven as though everyone goes there after death, Reg said soberly. Surely that cannot be. In using the term heaven, I use it in its broadest sense, which means the other side of death. Heaven has many places, many mansions, and there are many degrees which determine where a man shall be. On the other side of death's door, however, there is always clear vision. Even for the greatest sinners, particularly for the greatest sinners, it is for them to see clearly the stained surface of their souls and all the pitiful handicaps their pride has imposed on them. In these cases, of course, their clear seeing brings anything but peace, but I do not teach you of those who have deliberately, calmly and knowingly defied their God. I speak, for the most part, of those who have lived ordinary lives, ranging from ignorance to wisdom, from indifferent to earnest effort. Then the majority of men visit the plane between. From time to time, yes, but the regular visitors are those who really desire to learn the thinkers and triers, Sometimes, too, a strong desire will bring them, as, for instance, when they have been parted by death. Mothers and fathers will draw to their children, husbands to wives, and your mates, you see, to you. Why? Reg was delighted. Do you mean my mates want to meet me? Oh, yes. You see, you had made good friends with many of them, and the sharing of the hardships and common dangers of warfare had drawn you closer. Then, seeing death so often around them, men think and wonder, striving to follow in their minds the journey and experience of those who have gone before them. The physical body is material and acts as a wall or compartment to divide, but the soul is spiritual, and so, leaving the body either in death or sleep, it is more easy to make contact. Do you think it is all right for anyone to try and make contact? It is always dangerous to force anything, the woman guide put in gently. Men forget that. Buds that are forced open never come to flower. Besides, according to man's progress and development, he is destined for various planes, and men on these planes cannot intermingle. That is, they cannot leave their own plane to visit others, unless it is the higher, who have learned never to force or grass, can reach and help the lower. How is that achieved? Let us suppose that, on earth, a woman splits some caraway seeds into a bag of peas. I suggested, the man guide, smiling. She would take a sieve and pour all into it. The sieve would catch and hold the peas, but would allow the seeds to pass through. Yes, I see that. Well, those on the lower planes of heaven have to remain in their own planes. They are like the peas. But those who are on higher planes can pass through and visit the lower planes, where they often act as teachers. They are the seeds. Understand now? Oh yes, you do make it clear, and it is interesting. It is life. It is a continual interest, this living. From its earliest consciousness, when a man awakes to the fact that he is, he proceeds to grow and develop by experience. With each victory over self or the insistent demands of his lower nature, he enters into a greater freedom. This freedom grows and becomes a source of intense joy to him. He feels like a god, a conqueror, a king as he lives his life in a deeper degree of freedom with every passing phase. Oh, life is interesting. I always thought life practically ended when one died, Reg confessed. It has hardly begun, smiled the angel, adding, Look, our journey is done.